There is a story no one wants to tell out loud anymore. Not because it isn't true, but because telling it comes with consequences. Social penalties, labels, silence. So instead, we dance around it with statistics, hashtags, and empty encouragement. But beneath all of that noise, there is a quiet pattern repeating itself over and over again. Many modern women are unhappy. Not bored. Not having a bad phase. Deeply, existentially unhappy. And the most unsettling part is this. They did everything they were told would make them fulfilled. They followed the script. They pursued independence. They chased achievement. They delayed commitment. They prioritized self-sufficiency. They were told that freedom would feel like peace, that choice would feel like power, that removing constraints would remove suffering. And on paper, it worked. More options. More autonomy. More control than any generation before them. Yet something feels off. You see it in the anxiety, in the exhaustion masked as ambition, in the quiet resentment that creeps in when the applause fades, in the way empowerment talk sounds confident on the surface but brittle underneath. This is not a judgment. This is an observation, and observations don't care about ideology. Happiness leaves clues. This is not a video about blaming women. That would be lazy and wrong. This is about telling a real story that has been flattened, sanitized, and repackaged into slogans. A story about incentives, about trade-offs, about biology colliding with modern narratives, about what happens when a society tells half its population to chase one version of success while quietly devaluing another. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Freedom without meaning doesn't liberate you. It disorients you. For most of human history, happiness was not framed as endless self-expression. It was framed as contribution, belonging, and continuity. Family, community, purpose that extended beyond the self. Those structures were not perfect. Many were oppressive. But they provided something modern life struggles to replace: psychological anchoring. Modern culture removed the anchors first and promised fulfillment later. And now many women are floating. This is where the conversation becomes dangerous, because we are told that if a woman is unhappy, the solution must be more success, more independence, more validation, more choice. But what if the problem isn't too little freedom, but too much responsibility for crafting meaning alone? Choice overload is not empowering. It is paralyzing. When every path is open, every wrong choice feels catastrophic. When nothing is sacred, nothing feels grounding. And when you are told that happiness is entirely self-made, every moment of dissatisfaction feels like a personal failure. That pressure is crushing. And here is the real story no one wants to say. Many modern women are not unhappy because they failed the system. They are unhappy because they believed it. They were promised that career would replace family, that self-love would replace intimacy, that achievement would replace legacy. But humans are not modular. You cannot swap out deep evolutionary needs with slogans and expect the nervous system to cooperate. This isn't about going backward. It's about honesty, about acknowledging trade-offs, about admitting that not every loss can be reframed as growth and not every gain feels like progress. In the next segment, we are going to talk about the silent trade that modern women were never told they were making and why regret doesn't show up at 25, but hits much harder later. This isn't outrage content. It's a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable for a reason. The silent trade many modern women make often without realizing it is the quiet surrender of their emotional foundation in exchange for social approval and career success. When you are told from an early age that your worth is defined by your independence, your career, and your ability to do it all, you start believing that your value is directly tied to how much you can achieve outside of traditional roles. This message is reinforced at every turn, in the media, in education, at work. and in the conversations you have with friends and family. But here's the catch. When you define your worth purely through external achievement, you lose touch with the internal foundation that sustains long-term happiness. That foundation is built on relationships, community, and emotional fulfillment, things that aren't quantifiable and can be achieved by simply hitting targets or achieving milestones. Let's be real. In the pursuit of personal success, modern women have been sold a version of happiness that is transactional. You work, you achieve, you rise, you succeed, and then somewhere along the way you find yourself empty. But the emptiness doesn't come from the success itself. It comes from the fact that we've been trained to believe that self-worth comes from the results we achieve, rather than the people we connect with or the emotional intimacy we cultivate. It's easy to get stuck in the myth of self-made success, especially when the media constantly showcases women who seem to have it all: great careers, perfect bodies, vacations, and endless accolades. But what's often overlooked is the emotional cost of that success. Behind the polished social media posts and the career achievements, many women are struggling to maintain personal relationships, to navigate loneliness, or to find meaning beyond their professional accomplishments. And here's the harsh truth. Success without emotional connection leads to dissatisfaction, no matter how many awards you win or how many zeros are in your paycheck. When you're constantly striving for more, when your identity is tied to your productivity, it's easy to lose sight of the people and relationships that give you true fulfillment. The pursuit of career success can isolate you from the things that truly matter, things like family, meaningful friendships, and the kind of intimate connection that nourishes your soul. The more women buy into the idea that their value is tied to their professional success, the more they unintentionally deprioritize the very things that would actually make them happy in the long run. It is easy to dismiss the importance of relationships when you're being told constantly that the goal is to climb higher, to outdo yesterday, to make your mark in the world. But deep down, when you find yourself working late nights, constantly checking your inbox, and never really having time for the people who care about you, you start to realize that success doesn't fill the hole inside. And the more you chase success for success's sake, the more hollow that chase feels. Now, this isn't to say that success is bad. The pursuit of your career, your independence, and your personal growth are important. But they should never be your entire identity. True happiness comes when those achievements are complemented by meaningful, nourishing relationships, those emotional bonds that remind you that you're not just a collection of tasks, but a whole person with needs, desires, and connections that matter. The problem is that these emotional needs aren't easily fulfilled by checking boxes or closing deals. They are fulfilled by quality time with loved ones, by shared experiences, by emotional intimacy, and by a sense of belonging in a community. It's time to acknowledge the price modern women are paying for success, the cost of emotional disconnection. The good news is, it's not too late to make a change. In fact, once you realize that emotional fulfillment isn't just a nice-to-have, but a must-have, you can begin to shift your focus. In the next segment, we'll explore how to reclaim those emotional connections, how to build a life that ends to just successful on paper, but deeply fulfilling at its core. This shift is not about abandoning your ambition. It's about integrating your success with a life that makes you feel whole, loved, and at peace. The reality that no one tells you is this: most of the unhappiness modern women feel isn't because they refailing it's because they retrying to have it all, without understanding that having it all often means sacrificing what matters most. We live in a world that pushes the message that women must do it all: have the career, the body, the relationships, the experiences, and do them perfectly. The truth is, this is an impossible standard to meet. It's not just unrealistic. It's fundamentally broken. Let's break this down. Women today are expected to maintain the highest levels of professional success, emotional availability, physical attractiveness, social connectivity, and personal happiness. But where is the space for rest? Where is the room to simply exist without the pressure to constantly perform? The constant balancing act of work, relationships, self-care, and societal expectations leaves little room for actual fulfillment. When every single aspect of life is a project to optimize, there is no time to simply be, to slow down, to enjoy the process, to let go of the need to control every outcome. And here is where the real cost of having it all becomes painfully clear. It depletes you. Modern women often don't have the luxury of feeling at peace. Why? Because everything feels like it's a measure of worth. Every decision, every conversation, every interaction is filtered through the lens of what you're accomplishing. And when you feel like you're constantly being measured, your emotional battery gets drained and your mind starts to feel like it's running on fumes. Here is what society doesn't tell you. Having it all doesn't mean having everything all the time. It means prioritizing what truly matters to you and giving yourself permission to not do everything at once and not be everything to everyone. It's about recognizing that not every goal or ambition is worthy of your energy, and that some things need to be left behind in order for you to focus on what will nourish you. And this, my friend, is a critical point. The pursuit of perfection often means losing connection with your true self. When you're constantly striving for perfection in every area of your life, whether that is your body, your career, or your relationships, you're creating a trap for yourself. A trap that, when you fail to meet those impossible standards, makes you feel like you're less than, like you're not good enough. But here's the catch. Those standards were never meant to be met. They are distractions, pressures, and illusions. So why does this matter? Because the truth is, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You don't need to be the ideal version of yourself all the time to have value. Your worth doesn't come from how productive you are, how much you achieve, or how perfectly you maintain a picture-perfect life. It comes from who you are when the noise is turned off and you are left with nothing but your own sense of self. The modern woman's dissatisfaction often stems from the simple fact that she is trying to measure her worth against standards set by an external world that doesn't care about her happiness. It's time to reject the lie that you need to chase everything and everyone as approval. The most powerful women in the world didn't get there by being all things to all people. They got there by being unapologetically themselves and putting energy into what actually mattered. Whether it was their passion, their relationships, or their well-being, they took control of their own lives instead of constantly trying to fit into a mold that was never designed for their happiness. So here's the radical truth. You don't have to do everything. The more you try to do it all, the more you lose sight of what brings you true fulfillment. The more you focus on the outside validation, the more you lose your sense of inner peace. In the next segment, we're going to explore the power of learning to say no, of redefining your own sense of success, and the importance of prioritizing your emotional health, because that's where happiness starts. It starts within. And if you can reclaim that, the rest of the world will have no choice but to adjust. In order to truly understand why many modern women are unhappy, we need to address a crucial truth. The relentless pursuit of independence often comes at the expense of the very connection that nourishes a woman's soul. For decades, the narrative has been that the key to fulfillment is breaking free from traditional roles, achieving self-sufficiency, pursuing your career, and being your own person. And yes, there is undeniable power in independence. It is important. It is freeing. But there's a point where independence turns into isolation. In today's world, modern women are told to rely solely on themselves for happiness, success, and fulfillment. They are told that the ideal life is one where they never need anyone else. But this is where the modern paradox begins. We are social creatures. Humans, especially women, are wired for connection. Real, meaningful, deep relationships with others are the foundation of happiness. And yet, When you buy into the lie that independence is the ultimate goal, you end up trading the depth of connection for the illusion of self-reliance. This isn't about suggesting that women shouldn't be independent. Of course, you should be independent. You should be strong. You should own your life. But in the process, we've lost sight of the fact that true fulfillment doesn't come from doing everything alone. It comes from building a balance between independence and intimacy. The modern woman is expected to have it all, but the reality is that having it all often means having to do it all. And when you're doing everything yourself, the emotional bandwidth to truly connect with others, whether that's a partner, friends, or family, becomes limited. You sacrifice moments of real intimacy because you're too busy proving to the world that you can manage everything on your own. But here's the truth: you don't have to do it alone. You weren't designed to. And yet the more you isolate yourself in the name of doing it all, the more you subconsciously create emotional distance between you and the very people who could offer you the support, love, and fulfillment you need to thrive. What happens when a woman spends too much time trying to be everything on her own? She loses trust. She loses the ability to lean on others, to ask for help, to open up. And this is where the disconnection lies. This disconnection doesn't just affect your relationships with others. It's even deeper. When you are isolated emotionally, when you never let anyone in, you start to disconnect from yourself. You begin to lose sight of what you truly want, need, and feel. The mask of self-reliance becomes so thick that you can't even hear your own heart anymore. It's all performance. In truth, self-reliance can become a crutch that keeps you from fully engaging with life. If you refuse to need anyone or anything, you may achieve external success, but the internal cost is enormous. You may have all the accolades, the money, the career success, but your emotional world is in turmoil. You feel lonely, even when surrounded by people. You feel drained, even when you've checked off all your goals. Because in the pursuit of independence, you've severed the emotional connections that were meant to make you whole. What's the fix? It's a radical shift, one that goes against everything modern society tells us. You need to reclaim vulnerability. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? You've been told for so long that vulnerability is a weakness. But vulnerability is where true connection, real love, and meaningful relationships come from. It's the key to emotional fulfillment. Reaching out for support, letting others in, being able to say, "I need help, and I can't do this alone," doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It makes you someone who understands that, while you may be strong, you are not invincible. And that's okay. In the next segment, we are going to look at the power of connection, how opening yourself up to others, letting go of the fear of being seen as imperfect, and embracing the fullness of relationships will not only heal the cracks of loneliness, but also redefine what it truly means to be happy in this modern world. Now, let us talk about something uncomfortable, something that so many women feel but rarely admit: the fear of losing control. This fear is one of the most significant barriers to happiness in modern women. For decades, women have been taught that control equals security. Control over their careers, control over their lives, control over their relationships. The world tells you that if you manage everything perfectly, you'll be happy. But this mindset is one of the biggest traps of modern society. When women feel like they need to control every aspect of their lives, it's exhausting. And it doesn't lead to happiness, it leads to burnout. This obsessive need for control stems from a few places: fear, insecurity, and societal pressure. The fear that if you let go even just a little, you'll lose your position, lose your respect, or lose your independence. In reality, control is an illusion. The harder you try to hold on to every little thing, the more you suffocate the joy and freedom that naturally come with surrendering control and learning to trust. The fear of losing control prevents women from enjoying the present. It forces them to obsess over the future and fixate on things they can't even predict. You check your to-do list 1,000 times a day, You monitor every step of your career. You plan for every eventuality in your personal life, but in doing so, you miss the point of life itself, connection. Here's the painful truth. You can't control everything. Life has its own flow, and when you spend your energy trying to wrestle with the current, you exhaust yourself. The key to happiness is not in trying to control every outcome, it's in learning to flow with life. Let me break it down for you. The more you try to control your relationships, your career, or even how others perceive you, the more you push people away and burn yourself out. You push people away because control breeds distrust. When you're constantly managing every situation, every detail, people feel that they can't be themselves around you. They feel like pawns in your game, not partners in your life. Relationships, whether personal or professional, cannot thrive when one person is trying to micromanage everything. The most liberating shift you can make is to stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to control every aspect of your existence. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to experience life as it comes. Stop being afraid of what you can't control and embrace the things you can, your perspective, your response, and your choice to stay grounded. If you can start releasing the need to control everything, you'll open up the space for something greater, trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the people around you. Trust that everything will unfold exactly as it's supposed to, even if it doesn't look how you imagined it would. This shift is not easy. It will feel like you're losing a part of yourself at first. But the truth is, you're not losing control, you're gaining freedom. Freedom from the constant anxiety, from the constant need to manage every outcome. Freedom to live in the moment and allow things to happen rather than forcing them. Now you may be thinking, but what about my goals, my career, my life purpose? This isn't about giving up on your goals. It is about understanding that while you're reactively pursuing them, you don't have to micromanage every detail. You can take action without forcing the outcome. The more you focus on the process instead of the result, the more you'll enjoy the journey. You'll experience true peace when you release the need to control how everything unfolds. Let go of the idea that happiness only comes when things are perfectly controlled. True happiness lies in your ability to let go and trust the process. In the next segment, we'll dive into how to begin letting go. We'll explore practical steps for embracing uncertainty, finding balance, and creating the kind of life that doesn't require you to have everything under control, but still lets you live a fulfilling, meaningful existence. It's time to stop fighting life. It's time to start flowing with it. Here is where the story comes together and where the honesty has to be sharp. Happiness does not come from winning a culture war. It comes from alignment. And much of modern unhappiness, especially among women, comes from living out of alignment with deeply human needs while being told that discomfort is actually empowerment. You were told that wanting stability meant weakness. That desiring partnership meant dependence. That craving family meant you were settling. That needing others was a flaw to be corrected. So you learned to suppress those instincts, to intellectualize them away, to replace them with ambition, busyness, and endless self-optimization. But instincts do not disappear just because they are inconvenient. They wait, and they collect interest. That is why dissatisfaction doesn't usually show up early. At 22, everything feels possible. At 28, momentum masks emptiness. At 32, anxiety creeps in quietly. At 38, questions become unavoidable. And by the time regret speaks clearly, society offers no language for it, only blame, shame, or denial. This is the part no one prepares women for. Time is not neutral. Choices compound. Doors close quietly, not with drama, but with silence. Biology does not negotiate with ideology. Emotional needs do not disappear because they were postponed. And meaning cannot be downloaded later like a software update. This does not mean every woman should live the same life. It means every woman deserves the truth about trade-offs. A career can give purpose, but it rarely gives unconditional belonging. Freedom can give options, but it often takes roots. Independence can build strength, but it can erode intimacy. None of these are wrong, but pretending they are consequence-free is. Many women are unhappy not because they chose badly, but because they were never allowed to choose honestly. They were told only one path was strong, while the others were framed as failure, regression, or weakness. So when reality doesn't match the promise, the pain turns inward. Anxiety, depression, burnout, self-blame. But this isn't a personal defect. It's a narrative mismatch. Fulfillment is not found in maximizing status or minimizing need. It is found in integration, in allowing ambition and attachment to coexist, in accepting that needing others is not a flaw, it is a feature of being human, in understanding that meaning usually comes from responsibility, not from endless freedom. The women who are happiest long-term are rarely the loudest online. They are often the ones who made intentional, sometimes unglamorous choices early, who prioritized relationships alongside ambition, who accepted limits instead of fighting them, who chose depth over applause. And the most powerful realization of all is this: it is not too late to recalibrate. Happiness does not require burning your life down. It requires honesty. It requires courage to admit that something isn't working, even if you were praised for it. It requires the humility to change direction before resentment hardens into regret. Modern women are not broken. They are overloaded with expectations and underfed on truth. And the moment you give yourself permission to question the script, to define success on your own terms, to value connection as much as achievement, to choose meaning over messaging, you stop drifting. You stop performing happiness, and you start building it.